Alright guys, so today we're going to be going over the N52 engine and all the rough idle issues. As you guys know, rough idle on the N52 is a very common problem. If you have not experienced this, it's probably only a matter of time before you do. Okay, first of all, coil packs. Coil packs are going to be the number one thing that's going to cause rough idle. They might do that with or without causing a check engine light, depends on the state of them. They do go kind of bad and not throw a check engine light. Next thing is spark plugs. Spark plugs in N52 are very expensive. They're about 40 or 50 bucks for like some just semi-legit NGKs for them. You might be able to find something cheaper, but I don't know why you'd want to be honest with you. Crack valve cover. So as you know, on these plastic top N52s, the PCV is built into it. Can't really see it on this car because it's too far back, but it's towards the back. It's a little round piece. It sits on the back of the valve cover. It has a hose that goes over here and wires off under the intake. Now, if the valve cover is cracked, it's going to leak vacuum. If the PCV is bad, it could also leak vacuum. Or if the hose is damaged going down, it can also leak vacuum. So make sure when you replace that stuff, you use good quality stuff, especially the hose or the O-rings and everything on it are going to be an issue. That doesn't always throw a check engine light either. It could throw link codes, it could not, misfire or not. Just don't know. Fan off solenoids, you guys see me mess with these 100 times down here in the front. They're very expensive, like 350 bucks. They can basically cause the car not to advance or retard the timing properly. They could cause rough idle if the timing is not advanced correctly at idle, especially at cold start. Vanilla solenoid screens, probably a little less likely to cause a rough idle, but more of a loss of power or, well, improper timing. And those go in the side of the cylinder head. They screw in with the Allen key, and you take those out and clean them. That screens the oil before it hits the vanilla solenoids to keep them getting stopped up. So if you have a car that has not had the oil been changed in a long time, and you know that's the fact, you might want to check those screens. Bad crank or cam sensor. So N52 isn't as bad as a lot of the older cars about getting blistered on the front of the cam sensor. This one has a cam sensor right there, and then one crank sensor under the intake at the rear. But they do cause a lot of issues. You get around 150,000 miles, you start getting random codes, not running quite right. Definitely something to look at. Definitely worth taking a look at, especially for getting codes for it. Mass airflow. Mass airflow sensor could do some pretty freaking weird stuff, to be honest. And on this car, it sits right here out of the airbox. And we've had a lot of issues with that in the past of not always throwing a code. It makes the car not want to start, run really rough, all kinds. It's more of a run rough than misfire. If it's not feeling right, it could be a misfire, it could be a stumble under a load. I guess it could be a rough idle and that kind of stuff. Another thing is dirty oil. Dirty, nasty oil that can't flow. That's not only bad for your vanilla solenoids and screens, also bad for your lifters. The timing advance does run off of oil. So if you got some weird oil in it and it's not advancing correctly, that could also be it. Intake manifold gaskets, where the intake manifold bolts to the head, and to go along with that, also the throttle body gasket, where the throttle body bolts to the intake manifold. That could also, they could be ripped. They could have some crap in between them. Somebody had them off. They could be dried out and hard, and somebody reused them. Who freaking knows? Anything's up in there on that kind of stuff, no doubt. Leaking disavows. If your engine has disavows, this one does. There's one right there. There's one underneath there. If they're leaking vacuum, you could also have misfire. If they were hung shut, hung closed, it's going to do different things. Cause the car to run rough. Bad brake booster or booster valve. You guys see me struggle with this one a little bit, and the booster valve, let me set this off to the side. I think I put a video up on this, I'm not really sure. The booster valve on these E90s, everything is up under this cowling. It has a line that goes over to the vacuum pump, but I believe that wires into, this line right here. I believe that also wires into the vacuum down below. I don't remember exactly how that was set up. If that goes bad, it could also fill your brake booster full of oil. It could do all kinds of odd things. check for that, no doubt. That could also make your brakes not work correctly, which might be what this car has. Cracked vacuum fitting. So under the intake, right below the throttle body, there's a little push lock vacuum fitting down there. Those get broken easily, and all the fittings, of course, that go from the PCV hose down there to the PCV heater. Make sure all that stuff, the O-rings are good on it, and make sure nothing's broken or cracked. That'll cause all kinds of weird stuff to go on. Extreme case is clogged catalytic converters. Both my N52s have random catalytic converter codes. More or less this car. The E60 never throws a code for it, but sometimes it's pending. You know, N52 had a lot of problems with catalytic converter problems. Oh, so did N54 really. You know, these also had a lot of issues with it. The catalytic converter sit right off the engine is probably why they get clogged so easily. And if you have a PCV issue or a head gasket issue, you're definitely going to have issues with the catalytic converter. How to fix that? Well, that's debatable. They make additives you can put in there. Usually run an injector cleaner through it in the tank where it'll burn it. Some people run, I don't even remember, paint thinner, I believe. A gallon of paint thinner through it. I never tried that. A lot of people say it works. Sounds kind of sketchy to me. Might be worth a shot. We'll look some more into that coming up. And worst case, you could take them off and throw them in a bucket. But these are made on the manifolds. That might be a little bit harder to do. I doubt that. Well, who knows? Who knows really if that would actually work? More extreme case, cracked intake manifold. Now, I've seen a few guys had a cracked plastic intake manifold. That's not very common. That usually is to do with somebody torquing down the bolts and something's under it and it busts it, or prying up on it real hard, not having all the bolts out and break it. And there's some pretty good variances there. Another issue too of bizarre running can also be the eccentric shaft sensor and the eccentric shaft motor itself. Now, remind you, 90% of these issues is going to tell you if you scan the car what the problem is. Also, another one just popped in my head too. These oxygen sensors, if you have those switched around, this one plugged into that one, it's going to run all stupid, idle all stupid. Same way with the top ones, the front ones that plug in by on top of the manifold. If any of those are not switched correctly, or they're switched around, it's going to idle all stupid. Now, if you're on an ISTA or one of those diagnostic programs, it'll tell you which is which, right? It'll tell you if that's wrong. And I've actually gotten cars in before. I don't remember which one it was. It was wrong. I think it was, well, I don't remember. It's been too long ago. I just remember it told us it was incorrect. So in the conclusion, basically, these cars do have a lot of rough idle issues. And sometimes they just rough idle no matter what you do. No matter what. I did miss one thing though. If you have valve cover leaking issues, you could actually have oil down the spark plug valleys. And on E39s and older cars with the screw-in coil packs where they had 2 bolts on each side, that could actually get rainwater down inside there. But since these push-in coil packs have a seal all the way around them, they can't really get the rainwater in them. And not only that, the Misfire is not only limited to those issues, also it could be a bad injector. We've seen that a few times. It's not super common. Low compression. Low compression on these engines isn't too uncommon, especially after you have some kind of failure like PCV or head gasket failure, or the car's just been sitting for a very long time. BMWs don't like to sit for a long time. N54s are really bad about that. The older stuff, they sit for a long time. It has no compression. You usually got to put injector cleaner in the cylinders to free it up. I guess you could use possibly some PP Blaster, WD-40. But a lot of times when the car just runs for a while, it's good. And I guess the very last thing we'll talk about is incorrect timing. You guys see me a few times on this engine timing these. And I always talk about there's 2 holes in the flywheel, one right next to the other one. If you get it in the wrong one, it'll run, but it'll be misfiring, cutting out, carrying on. If you have any of the Vanos timing wrong on these, but these are pretty simple engines to time. Unlike the older models, these are very simple to time, but you can still get it wrong if you don't pay attention. And that's really about it. That's all I can really think of. yeah, so if you checked all that stuff and you're still rough idling, I don't know. E60 rough idle sometimes on cold start. Everything's new on it. Just kind of the way it is, I guess. But that's it, guys. Thanks for watching the video today. Talk to you later. Have a good day.